So to start with, we will focus on growth. And growth is mainly regulated by growth hormone. Growth hormone is secreted by the pituitary and regulated by the hypothalamus. We have here growth hormone, releasing hormone, which is a positive stimulus for growth hormone secretion. Somatostatin, that is a negative regulator. And then there are other hormones, even hormones secreted by the stomach, that regulate growth hormone. Then growth hormone acts on various tissues, on the liver, regulating the production of this insulin growth factor 1, IGF-1, which acts on the bone, the cartilage, and other tissues. And here you can then easily imagine how growth hormone is regulating growth. There are other actions of growth hormone that are not related to growth and metabolic effects. So going to the bone, you all know about the growth plate. This is cartilage in the boy, in children, until they get the adulthood, and this cartilage is completely replaced by bone. So this growth plate is regulated by growth hormone, via IGF-1, but there are other genes involved in the growth of long bones, like the SHOX gene. And why do I mention the SHOX gene? It's because the SHOX gene is on the X and Y chromosomes. You have one, we have two pairs of each chromosome, chromosome 1, 2, 3, and we have one X or Y or two X chromosomes, generally. So we have, in the case of SHOX, one allele, one copy of this gene on the X chromosome and one copy of this gene on the Y chromosome. Girls have the two copies, of course, on the X chromosome. And what is known is that these two copies of the SHOX gene are expressed in everyone. You know that generally girls who have two X chromosomes, one of the X chromosomes is inactivated. Well, it's not completely inactivated, and there are portions of the X chromosomes that are not inactivated. So both girls and boys have the two copies of the gene that are active. You can then imagine that a boy with one X and two Y chromosomes has three copies of the gene. Then, if we go to the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, we have the same hypothalamus and pituitary, the hypothalamus producing the gonadotropin releasing hormone that acts on the pituitary, that secretes LH and FSH. These two pituitary hormones act on the testes. And the testes have two main compartments. You have the interstitial compartment, where the Leydig cells secrete testosterone, and then the seminiferous tubules, which produce the sperm in the adult and also secrete other hormones that we'll see in a minute. So here, the testes, you have the interstitial tissue with testosterone production by Leydig cells, the seminiferous tubules with sperm production in the adult, and the other cells, the endocrine cells, are the circulatory cells, which produce AMH and inhibin B, which are also testicular hormones that are produced from very early in life. Leydig cells are regulated by LH, and sertoli cells are regulated by FSH. So which are the normal levels of these hormones along life? This is a fetal period, and during the fetal period, both LH and FSH are high, and testosterone, which is regulated by LH, is also high. They decline in the last trimester of fetal life, and then they go up during 3 to 6 months after birth. And then the whole system is inactive or quiescent during childhood and reactivated during puberty. So everyone believed that the testis was really a quiescent organ during whole childhood. But that was because we only looked at testosterone and gonadotropins. And why we looked at this? Because the clinical effect of testosterone is quite evident. Testosterone virilizes the fetus and virilizes boy during puberty. If a fetus does not have testosterone action, it is not virilized. It becomes a girl from the external aspect. If a boy does not produce testosterone during puberty, he will not have beard, he will not grow, he will not have his genitalia, the size of the genitalia will be as a prefigured boy. So that's why we thought the testis did nothing during the whole prepubertal period. But when we started measuring the other hormones, and that was relatively recent, we saw that sertoli cells do work during infancy and childhood. So that infancy and childhood is not a period of complete quiescence, it's a period of physiologic hypogonadotrophic hypoandrogenism, that is, gonadotropins are low, androgens are low, but AMH and inhibin B, the two sertoli cell hormones, are high. The problem is that they don't have any remarkable effect on the aspect of a boy at this time of life. AMH, called anti-Mullerian hormone, has its main effect, the most remarkable effect, during fetal life, here. And it is called anti-Mullerian because it makes the Mullerian ducts regress, and the Mullerian ducts are ducts that are present both in the XX and the XY fetus. And when they do not regress and they develop, they turn into the fallopian tubes, the uterus, and the upper vagina. That's what happens in a normal girl who does not secrete AMH during fetal life because she does not have a testis. And so there is no AMH during fetal life. And then the Mullerian ducts develop into the uterus, fallopian tubes, etc. And what is the other importance of sertoli cells in the development of the testis of a boy? Although it is not clinically remarkable, it is very difficult to assess just by palpation. The testis of a boy grows, increases in size from birth to, let's say, the age of 9, 10, just before puberty, the onset of puberty arrives. But this is very difficult to see just by palpation. When you go to a doctor, the doctor look looks at the testes, of a boy, but it will not be able for him to see a difference between a 0.5 ml testis and a 1.5 ml testis. This is too small a difference to be detected just by palpation. Then, during puberty, there is this huge increase of the size of the testes. Now, what makes the testes grow during infancy and childhood? Mainly the Sertoli cells. Sertoli cells proliferate and increase their size during infancy and childhood. Then, what makes the testis volume increase during puberty? Germ cells. And for the development of spermatogenesis, you need the action of androgens, which are produced by Leydig cells here in the interstitial tissue. So, and that is what is I just said. Androgens work through an androgen receptor. Testosterone is the most common androgen, the most common androgen produced by testes. But then testosterone can be transformed into DHT, dihydrotestosterone, which is more potent. So if you measure testosterone and dihydrotestosterone in the blood, testosterone is much higher, but then with very little DHT, you can have the same action with 10 times more testosterone, because DHT is more potent as an androgen. And androgens act on different target tissues, as you see here: production of sperm, general virilization of the body during fetal life, during puberty, prostate development, and puberty maturation, as I said, but also on the bone. So you see, growth is regulated both by growth hormone through IGF-1 and by testicular hormones. And testicular hormones are not only testosterone, as I said, DHT, but also testosterone can be transformed into estrogens. Usually estrogens are the female hormones. Well, all of us have male hormones and female hormones. Question is how much of each we have. And bone development depends both on androgens and estrogens. So, I mentioned many hormones and their regulators, but only few of them are present on the X and Y chromosomes, the genes of them. The gene of the androgen receptor is present on the X chromosome. There are genes involved in fetal testicular development that are present in the Y chromosome, but also on the X chromosome. Genes that are involved in this production of sperm that are present on the Y chromosome. Genes that are involved in the development of puberty that are present on the X chromosome. And so, how growth normally occurs? And as you know, the body proportions are not the same in a newborn and in an adult. And why is this? Because the different parts of the body grow differently along life. And the growth of the trunk and of the limbs, the addition of both, results in the linear growth during life. And this is done, so this is age. This is age here, and this is height. You may know these curves, and might be too elementary, you tell me if you know this, but if you do not understand, please stop me and ask me. So, usually when you take your kid to a pediatrician, he will measure him and put it on and graph his height on this, his stature on this curve. So if you put 100 boys in a line, you will have three boys that are this stature. Then the fourth will be there, the fifth there, the 10th there, the 50th there, the 97th there. So you have between the 3rd and the 97th centile what we call the normal height or stature for a certain age. And as you can see, the height and stature are, the increase is very important during the first year or two, then it's a little bit less during the rest of childhood, and there is a growth spurt here during puberty until they reach the final height. So what are the factors that are involved in linear growth during infancy and childhood? Mainly growth hormone and SHOX gene. During puberty, the growth spurt and the trunk growth that are regulated by gonadal steroids, also by adrenal steroids, but mainly in the boy by gonadal steroids and testicular hormones, which also influence the secondary sex characteristics. Not only is important the acquisition of the final height, but also when all these events of puberty occur. So there is a normal timing and a normal tempo of puberty. What happens in a boy with insufficient gonadal steroids? There is no growth spurt there. So at the moment when his pairs begin to accelerate their stature, they become smaller than most of them. But then, what happens is that in the normal boys, which produce androgens during puberty, the cartilage of the bones close, and then the final stature is achieved. The boys who do not produce gonadal steroids go on growing, and they become taller than their peers. And the characteristic is that the growth is mainly on the limbs, because the trunk does not grow because of those cartilages that are present on the long bones. So a boy that does not have, same applies for girl, that does not produce normally gonadal steroids will be taller than his peers, with long arms and long legs. at the end of puberty, at the end of the normal age for puberty. So, yes, sure.
Is there ever a time when it, or a way, because I think I've heard other parents talk about seeing an endocrinologist to slow down growth because it was causing a lot of physical problems for their child. Can you talk a little bit about that and if that's ever necessary in what you do?
Yes, you mean slow growth because you can have an accelerated growth and you can have prolonged growth, which is not the same thing. You might have accelerated growth in a boy who is having a precocious puberty. You see, I go back to the previous. So a boy with a precocious, I think I'll...
Can you explain axillary growth?
And prolonged growth.
I understand prolonged.
Okay.
The red line is prolonged.
That's it. Yes.
So what is accelerated?
Accelerate. Let me see if I'm not sure if it is in this presentation or the next one that I graphed the different possibilities. If not, remind me
Okay.
to
Okay.
talk about that.
So the axillary growth, is that when the trunk is growing?
It can be both
Okay.
the trunk and the limbs. Yes.
What's considered precocious?
Precocious. Then the normal pubertal timing is characterized by a beginning of the increase in testis size by the age of between, let's say, 10 and 14. Before 9, if a boy has an acceleration of the testicular volume size, an increase of the testicular volume size, before the age of 9, that would be precocious puberty. If the testes do not increase their size after the age of 14, that would be delayed puberty. Then, after the testes increase their size, there is the increase in the size of the penis, the pubic hair development, and afterwards, the growth spurt. And all these events will take between 3 and 5 years, approximately. So, timing is abnormal if they don't start at the moment they should. Tempo is abnormal if they don't take place during the period they should. If, for example, a boy starts puberty at 10 and he ends his pubertal development by 11.5, that's too short a period, too accelerated.
So it should take a minimum of...
Between 3 and 5 years.
And what do you do in the event that it's too short?
Then you could try to slow it down, the development of puberty.
With
There are medications for that. So it depends, but generally, it depends on the diagnosis. It could be because of an accelerated tempo of the hypothalamic pituitary axis, or it could be because the testes, independently from the pituitary, are secreting androgens, or because the adrenals are secreting androgens.
So there's a way to test to
Yes.
figure out which one.
Yes. So now, let's, after all this physiology, normal physiological processes, let's come back to our problem here, which in fact you may already know we do not have a problem, major problem here, because most of all I have said, you're thinking of your children. They did not have, they have not had any problem with hormones. They have not had accelerated growth. They have not had slow growth. And that's why you are not taking them to an endocrinologist.
Can I ask, I know most of the people here and the ages of their children, but how old is your son?
Twins,
11.
okay.
And you're
13, okay.
13?
He's
The
17, so maybe I'm in the wrong place, but he's 17.
No,
17.
you're not the wrong
Okay.
place.
No.
But I just, it's, because a lot of us, our sons aren't that old yet. So
How
like,
old are
my son is 8,
8.
and hers is 7,
Seven.
7.
Okay.
9. So
Okay.
there's a group of us that are pre-puberty.
Okay. So, as compared to other sex chromosome tragedies, you see that XXY patients, Klinefelter patients, are diagnosed mostly as adults. This is the case also for XYY males. We don't know about the girls.
Do you think that, I think that's changing. I think
It's
more
changing.
prenatal.
It is, yes. These are data from 97.
Yes.
We don't have, epidemiological studies are very difficult to implement. You don't need machines, you don't need, but they are very difficult to implement. And so you may have results that are not correct just because the sample you took in the population. Where did you take your population from, your sample from? So, although, yes?
I got a question. Even though they diagnose it, does the doctor even write it up? Do they just kind of blow it off because they're still developing a kid? I mean, they talk about how the samples and stuff were inaccurate.
Okay, no, I understand.
I'm just saying, if he takes that sample and goes, oh, by the way, you're going to have an XYY.
Yes, no, I meant a sample of the population.
Right.
So, where did you take the persons from the population to say there are 1 every 1,000 or 1.5 every 1,000?
Well, and it's easier to find the adult diagnosis people because they obviously had a problem that led them to seek out a diagnosis, where the prenatal diagnosis,
Yes, the
they
prenatal
just disappear into the world because they may not have a problem.
problem. Yes, sure, of course. I mean, but we are, as pediatricians, are mainly interested in doing the diagnosis at this period.
Right.
So, why we might do diagnosis in a certain percentage of patients with Klinefelter is because they have signs that might orient us to the diagnosis, like the cryptorchidism, that is the testes that are not in the scrotum. That is relatively frequent in patients with XXY cartilage.
Meaning that you have to bring them down?
Yes. But it's not common in boys with XYY.
And does it typically happen, they know at birth that that's,
Yes.
yeah, because that did happen with our son.
Okay.
And which makes me wonder if there's something that's being missed. One of the things that we've started to wonder since being here and seeing an XXYY boy,
Mhm.
who our son looks like he could be brothers with, is if there's a possibility that there's maybe an undetected extra Y that he has, and if he fits more of that. Extra X, yeah, and
What?
if he fits more of that.
Cryptorchism is relatively frequent in the general population. It depends on the series of studies, but between 2 and 9% of neonates have non-descended testes. Not completely descended, it might be somewhere
Yeah.
in the way to the scrotum. 2 to 9%. Well, this is even more frequent in Klinefelter, which may reach up to 30%.
30 or 13?
30. 30. We don't know about XYY patients. So it could be between 2 and 9 also, as the general population of boys. I mean, there's nothing that would make us think an XYY boy has a higher risk to have undescended testes as the XY boy. So if this is the typical XXY boy, he will have normal FSH, AMH, and inhibin B, that is sertoli cell function of the testes. During the one is prepubertal stage, that is boy who is under 9 or above 9, but who has not yet developed or has not yet started puberty. 2 is the very first stage of puberty, and then 3 to 5 is the advanced puberty. So you see, the sertoli cells function normally. FSH is normal, AMH is normal, and inhibin B is normal. In Klinefelter boys, at prepubertal stage or the very early stages of puberty. But then, these levels of hormones are extremely low in more advanced puberty. And this results in an increase of the FSH, because these hormones are low, and mainly inhibin B is low. Then FSH goes up to try to compensate, let's say. So this occurs in advanced puberty in Klinefelter patients. Concerning the Leydig cell testosterone production, it is also normal in these periods, although there are studies indicating that they might be subnormal. And then it is clearly below what, I mean, if you make the relationship, the ratio between these levels and these levels, the ratio is clearly abnormal, because you have very high LH in order to keep testosterone within the normal range. So you should have LH of this, in this range, to have testosterone in this range. And you see most have elevated LH to keep testosterone in a normal range, and even in a few of them, testosterone is below. So this is what happens in the Klinefelters.
So is that what leads to their infertility issues?
It's a little bit more complicated than that, because in fact then if you look at the seminiferous tubules here, they are also affected. So the seminiferous tubules are they're responsible for the production of sperm. So there is, first of all, testosterone, and then the seminiferous tubules that are affected also. And so they have these fertility problems. So now if we compare, this is what I mentioned before. So this is age, and these are the hormone levels. You see, testosterone is, and between these black lines, you have the normal range. So you see XXY patients have normal testosterone, but then in advanced puberty, testosterone becomes low, LH becomes high, FSH becomes high, and this is estradiol, which is not really very different from the normal population. What happens in the XYY body? Most of the hormone levels are normal. Only one patient here, it's only one, that had elevated FSH. But most of them, and this is estradiol are estrogens that might be responsible, for example, in the XY patients for the gynecomastia, the development of breast tissue in boys.
Okay, just out of curiosity, how big was the sample? How big was the sample?
How big? Well, I think this was a Danish study, and I think they had, I can answer your question precisely because I have the article here, but
They have about 60, I think.
they a little bit less than that, yes. Let me see, I will tell you exactly.
Yeah, that's like the best study there is.
Yes.
Is the Danish one.
Danish one, exactly. I have it here. Yes. So they were nine.
Nine. Wow. Yeah, that was maybe a different Danish.
Are the three black lines the high, low, and median of the
Yes,
average?
yes.
Okay, so it's on the low range of average, though. Is that correct?
On the testosterone.
Testosterone.
Yes.
Maybe yes. Yes. But as you see, there is no increase in LH.
Right.
That is important. Sometimes it's we must look at more than one just level of hormone to have the idea. If you look at, for example, at the, I go back because, no, yeah. If you look at the Klinefelters, for example, testosterone is in the lowest normal to below normal, but LH is clearly high. That means that the meaning of that is completely different from this case where you see relatively low testosterone or in the lowest half, but with normal LH. When testosterone is not enough, LH goes up. It's one of the ways to see if testosterone is not enough. Of course, there are other ways to see if testosterone is not enough.
So, in the XXY males, where they're, to me, it doesn't look like, other than maybe one or two, that their levels of testosterone are that different. So, is it that their body is not able to utilize it? What makes the LH and the FSH so high in them? Do we know?
Yes, we know for the FSH. For the LH, we suppose that these testosterone levels are not enough.
Right.
For FSH, it is clear, it was in the previous one, it is because inhibin B here is very, very low.
Right.
So it is inhibin. This means that there is not enough inhibin B to inhibit FSH production,
Right.
or to slow down FSH production.
So what's enough testosterone for someone with normal inhibin B is not enough testosterone for someone whose inhibin B levels are too low?
I'm not sure if we can. Inhibin B is known to low down FSH, but not necessarily LH.
Very complicated.
It's a little bit complicated, yes. However, if we see no increased risk of undescended testes, if we see no elevation of LH, if we see no increased frequency of small penis, then all of them are signs that androgen levels are enough. There are several things we look at. So it seems that the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal function is normal in the XYY male, at least until the age of 20. We don't see reports of hypogonadism in the adults, so we believe that there is no hypogonadism in the adult. As there are, I mean, there are many reports in the XXY patient, adult patient, who need, showing that they need testosterone treatment, but not in the XY and the XYY patients. What about fertility? Well, once again, this is one of the ways we can look at that. It is, I cannot say how many XYY patients have fertility problems, because there are no studies on that. What we can say is that if you study patients, there are 1,000 patients studied here that are infertile, you can find XXY karyotype much more frequently than the XYY karyotype. So clearly, fertility is an issue in the XXY. It doesn't seem to be as important an issue in the XYY. But once again, this is one way of looking at it. I can't, yes.
What's typical for most XY male?
XY males, I mean,
Do you have any idea what out of 1,000 XY males is infertility like?
no, but this is we are looking at it the other way around.
Right.
Yeah.
So
We start with the infertility.
fertile. So the other, the 97% were XY.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You see, so I cannot answer, unfortunately, to the question, because we don't have.
A lot of the diagnosis of Klinefelter's XXY males happens when they try to have children
Yes.
and are discovered to be infertile, and that leads to a diagnosis. There isn't a huge diagnosis of XYY males due to infertility, so we must assume, or we can assume,
Yes.
that that's not an issue, or they would be being diagnosed through infertility workups. So, which is, for us, you know, the parents of the XXY walk around talking about the infertility piece, and I think for most of us, we're beginning to realize that the fertility is a problem because of the impulsivity factor. I wish my children had to come to me and ask for $50,000 for to be able to have a child instead of it might maybe just happening, you know. I'll start fun. I mean, I know I've talked to parents of older teen XYY males, and it's not without validity that I have this worry in the back of my brain. So, you know, that's down the road. Which
It's here.
Yeah.
And I think they have to determine, I mean, you don't have a crystal ball.
Right.
What if he met a woman that could never have children anyway?
Right.
So I try not to concentrate on what the reality is the reality, and he will just go along and life will bring him wherever it brings him.
But one of the
no,
questions I had about that is there any relation to the endocrinology piece and kind of what we're hearing on the boards in terms of the sexual acting out and that seems to be more extreme in our boys? Because we hear a lot of people, I mean, I think the ones that are comfortable enough to really talk about it, but there are some that kind of do it behind the scenes too, that's an issue for our population when they hit puberty. And so I'm wondering if there's any type of relation to the endocrinology.
It doesn't seem so,
Okay.
because hormonal levels, at least gonadal hormone levels, seem normal.
It's probably the impulsivity. Right.
And so what about growth?
Electric shock.
And so growth, it begins within the normal range and then slowly goes onto the tallest, the highest range, and even below, over the normal range. Why is this? Well, there is an accelerated growth, but it is true for XYY and also for XXY and also for XXX girls. And growth is accelerated from infancy, from about the age of 2 approximately, 2 to 4 depending on the studies. They are taller at the moment of pubertal onset, mainly because they have long legs. So the problem seems to be in the limbs, not in the trunk. The GH axis, the growth hormone axis, is normal. And the pubertal timing and tempo seems normal. So what you asked me about the accelerated growth before the normal age of puberty would give a curve like this, an increase here instead of an increase here. Very, very, this, you see this increase here? Well, it occurs here. So it does not occur. I mean, there is an accelerated growth, but stably accelerated during the whole childhood period, so that they reach the age of puberty being a little bit taller. But it's not that, you see, a boy that in 1 year between the age of 5 and 6, he grew enormously. That would be a precocious puberty, a sign.
So if they haven't gotten really tall by puberty, then you're saying most likely they'll just grow at this normal rate. Am I
Pardon?
I'm misunderstanding? So if they haven't gotten very tall by puberty, does that mean that they are going to be within the tall and not really, really tall area? Is that?
You mean the precocious?
Yeah.
Yes, the precocious, they are taller by the time they reach the age of puberty, but then
But then they'll even out, they won't, okay.
they will be smaller
Okay, okay.
If they started.
than the
If
normal.
they started it early.
Yes.
Right, so you can basically
Because,
tell
yes.
by, okay. Got it.
You see? So, what is it that explains this increased stature? It could be the fact that there are 3 SHOX genes, but this needs to be confirmed. There are 3 SHOX genes. Is it the only reason? Is it the real reason? We don't know.
Is there a way to inactivate one of the SHOX genes?
There's no therapy. And,
Okay, can I ask, what is this middle?
this is another way, this one,
Uh-huh.
this is another way of representing the same thing here. This line would be this one.
Mhm.
And so then you make, you subtract this from this, and you have this. It's way,
So they're significantly over the mean.
well, up to 2 over the mean is the normal range,
Up to 2.
up to 2. The mean plus or minus 2 is normal range. But what is clear that this is not due to an androgen problem, because androgen levels are within the normal range. Hi, we're still with the XYY, but you're welcome.
Okay.
You're still with the.
Yes.
XXYY?
Yes.
No,
We started a little bit.
Oh, little
We're
bit.
a little bit later, yes. So that was what I had to tell you. Mostly that from the endocrine point of view, these boys are normal. They are taller, but it doesn't seem to be an endocrine problem. We don't exactly know which is the reason. And it's not really, I don't know how you perceive it, but it doesn't seem to be really a problem. In general, we, pediatric endocrinologists, find that families find short stature as a problem, but not high stature, provided it's not jagged. But I don't know what your perception is.
Yeah.
I think I've read this and I kind of noticed it anecdotally too, that in the normal XY male population, the later they start their growth spurt, the taller they usually are.
Well, it has to be not too early, not too late.
Right. I guess I'm saying later normal than early normal. Like you see, if you go to the middle school,
Yeah.
yes. the 6th, 7th, 8th grade, you'll see only a very few males who have started to develop facial hair and the secondary signs of muscles and that kind of thing. And they're usually end up to be shorter.
Sure. Yes. Sure.
And then when you get to high school, there's a range where 9th grade, 10th grade, I have a son who is 25, and I have a brother, and my family is tall. My brother and my older son started their growth later than a lot of boys, but not late, but I'm saying maybe where a lot of boys started at 14 or 13, they started more 15 to 16 and grew longer in 19, 20. And my son is now 6'5", and he is XY, as far as I know. But then my son who has XYY, he's the same as my other son. He's not taller, he's not unusually tall. He's a little taller, but not much.
Yes.
But will probably grow in puberty a lot.
Certainly. I
Yes.
mean, a lot. He would, his pubertal growth will be normal. So if he's here,
Right,
he will finish here.
right.
You see, these boys that finish here, well, they were here already at the beginning of puberty.
Right,
Growth during puberty seems to be normal.
right,
They just started
right.
a little bit higher, which is not the case for those who started puberty before. And when you compare them with the other pairs, they are taller because they started puberty.
Right.
They have already consumed part of their growth spurt.
And I missed the beginning. Are you an endocrinologist?
I am a pediatric endocrinologist in Argentina.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.